Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Off the Hook with Matty D. I'm excited for today's program. I love always talking about fishing, but I love when I can talk about fishing that's not so Virginia or mid-Atlantic centric. And you might remember my guest. He came on last year, and he's the founder and head guide of an outfit out in Montana called Montana Trout Hunters. And I'm blown away by the fishing that's done out there. And his name, of course, is Darrel DeLeon, and he joins me now. And Darrel, how are you?
Good, Matt. How are you? Thanks for having me back.
Oh, my pleasure. Great to see you again. I love the whole palm tree kind of thing there because that's going to get into our later discussion, which is about destination fishing, which is something you're starting to get into. But before we even get there, first of all, let's remind our viewers, number one, I'm going to say it right off the bat. Thank you for your service. You're a former veteran. Tell us a little bit about your service history, please.
Yeah, I spent 26 years in the military, 14 years as an enlisted guy in the Army, 12 years as an officer in the Air Force. Originally from Montana, I was a flight paramedic when I was in the Army, and I was a space and missile guy in the Air Force. I was a nuke guy for about half that time, and then a satellite guy, GPS expert, imagery satellite. And then I finished off my career teaching advanced space studies at the Advanced Space Operations Center in Colorado Springs, and came home to retire. I was done.
But retirement has taken on a different turn because you started guiding. You always loved fishing. I remember the story you told. I believe your brother had a fly rod and you grabbed it and never put it down, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
No.
No,
it was my music pastor, Frank.
That's okay. Yeah.
That taught me how to fly fish. And I just turned into just an animal of it. We went out fishing. I caught 6 fish on my first day, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is unreal.
And then slowly worked your way. You were an understudy of a guide service out there, and he kind of said, hey, here's some clients, go take them out. And that was kind of the bug to the beginning of what became Montana Trout Hunters.
Right. I did 3 years as a guide, which is what you have to do in Montana before you can become an outfitter. You have to have 3 years and 150 days of experience. Mm-hmm. I had my 150 days done in my first 2 years, but I had to wait that 3rd year.
Right.
And then as soon as I was eligible, I said, it's time to take the leap of faith, put all this in God's hands and go from there. And Montana Trout Hunters was born.
Montana Trout Hunters is not only born, but it is an amazing fishery. You fish the Missouri River. Just bring up your website here. You can see so many different things. You go to MontanaTroutHunters.com. Tell us a little bit about the fishery itself. You're located on the Missouri River, but you also fish a couple of other rivers depending on what's going on with the local water, if I remember correctly.
Correct. So the Missouri is my home water, and it has always been my home water. And it's the best river in the lower 48, hands down, bar none. It's just unmatched. And so it's where I really, really want to be. And it's always been a great fishery, but it really hasn't been as popular as it has been in the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, it's really, really kind of blown up a bit. The nice thing is the Missouri is like 2,300 and some odd miles long, but there's this 35-mile stretch between Helena and Great Falls that's the best trout fishery in the lower 48. And it's unbelievable. We have a honest average of about 18 inches, about 3,600 fish per mile, tailwater, stable water conditions, just biblical hatches. And it's just, you have to come experience. And we talked about that last time I was on, that you have to come. And Montana has just such an interesting pull to it. People come here and they're just absolutely blown away. They're just like, I never knew a place like this existed on Earth, and just Montana has that pole, and then people make movies about it, and then people tend to flock to it a little bit, and the secret's out. So
I'm sure, I mean, not to bring up the cliche, but I'm sure Yellowstone probably has ruined part of the quietness and the subduedness of Montana itself, the show.
it did, but what it really did is that show really drove up a lot of prices. That kind of, along with COVID,
Hmm.
really kind of really drove up prices tremendously, because everybody wants their trophy ranch with Beth and Rip, and but the one thing they don't ever show on Yellowstone was calving in the winter, which
Right.
is when it happens. There's no mud and there's no rain in that show.
And you also drop down to like minus 65 wind chill, which is just absurd. So going outside of the winter can be a little bit of a challenge, to say the least.
Absolutely. And we had about 3 weeks this winter that barely got above zero. So
I mean, what do you do? You're not doing this. You're not catching gorgeous fish like that on a clear blue sunny sky. That's for sure.
hey, the cows still have to eat, the
Right.
horses still have to be fed.
Yep.
That's what we do.
Life goes on. You,
Life goes on for us. You
yeah.
just bundle up a little more, and there you go.
Whereas us Southerners, even though I'm from the North, I feel like my blood is thinned out. It's like, no, that's just too cold,
Absolutely. And once you get about anything below 10 below
Mhm.
is just cold.
Yeah.
It's just cold.
It just gets to you for sure. So okay, so the Missouri River is your home river. It's got that great stretch. What kind of species of fish of trout are we targeting in that stretch? What can anglers expect?
So we have about 3,000 or so rainbows per mile. That's about 90% of our fish. And then about 10% of it are brown trout. And the one nice thing, and it always astounds me that every time I tell people this, they're always kind of blown away by the fact Montana does not stock any fish in any river. So everything that we have in all of our rivers are 100% all natural reproducing. So
Wow.
these are wild trout naturally reproducing, and that's what just makes these fish so powerful. I on our last podcast, there was a picture of there was a video of
Hmm.
a fish that jumped like 20 feet. It jumped once, and
It
then the next
jumped
time
almost to
it
the
jumped,
boat.
yeah, it was like 5 feet from the boat. That thing went like 20 feet. It was incredible.
It,
And the rainbows are just super powerful and fun, and there's a lot of them. And the browns are a little more reclusive, and they tend to sound. They tend not to jump. Some do, but a lot of them will just kind of use their weight and their shoulders to really push themselves down and try to bury themselves.
Wow. I mean, really, either way, it's a heck of a fight. Whether the fish is coming out, because your fish that I'm showing here, and this is just a very small sample, they're averaging 18, 24. Are you pushing 30 on some of these fish?
No, they you showed a picture a minute ago. It was a real long fish. And it was 27.
Hmm.
That one right there. That was 27 inches, and that was the biggest I've put in the boat.
Wow. That's
And the interesting thing about that fish there was he was on his way out. So that fish did not survive. And you could tell just by his girth dimensions. And that picture was taken in July. Now, July the year before, that fish would have had the same length to it, but he would have been 2.5 times the girth that he was in this picture.
gotcha. And so let's talk a little about that. Your seasons, because your winter is so harsh, when do you start guiding? When are the rivers, kind of ice free, and do you get a snow melt that creates a good flood in the river and you have to wait for that to come down? How does all that work?
So it's a tailwater, and we never do freeze completely over
Okay.
in probably the first 12, 15 miles remains largely ice free. Now, when we had our 30 below this year, there was some ice shelves that did develop,
Right.
but largely you can fish the first 10 miles of it pretty ice free for most of the winter. And then we don't really have a runoff. Our runoff typically peaks in June,
Okay.
and the along our stretch of the Missouri, we do have some tributaries, and once in a while those will muddy up and those will stain the river, and then sometimes you get an ice dam breaks free or something weird like that,
Sure.
and it really milks it up for a few days. But there's always clean water to be found. The whole 35 miles might not be fishable for a few days, but we always it's 12 months a year, and I mean I guided in January, February, and March this year, and then April's kind of when it really starts to turn on around here.
Mhm.
Those water temps start to climb out of the 30s into the 40s, pushing to the 50s, and that's when we start to see blueing olives and caddis.
And so the water temperature's warming, you get your bug hatch because a lot of your summertime, because you talked about this before, the hatches there are just incredible. It's almost like a cloud of caddis that can develop.
Correct. Yeah. The hatches are, I mean, they're biblical. There's just not another word. I mean, they're without exaggeration, there are hatches here when every square inch of water surface has at least one bug on it for as far as you can see.
I mean, so you would say that matching the hatch would be simple, but now there's a plethora of food for these fish to eat, but you have so many fish congregated. I guess it does make it a little bit easier at that point.
Well, I tend not to throw what's hatching.
Okay.
So or I don't throw the size of what is hatching because you're not going to compete with literally a trillion naturals on the water.
Okay.
So if tricos are hatching, one of my favorite bugs is like a size in tricos, size 20, 22.
Hmm.
I will tend to throw like a size 14 purple haze. So still in the mayfly family, but a lot larger. And I'll put a little dropper under that as well. But a lot of times they eat that big fly. I think they just get tired of eating 1 calorie at a time and they see something a little bit bigger.
Right.
Well,
why go for the rib when you can have the T-bone?
right. And last week I was out and we had about 2 in the afternoon, a blue wing olive hatch kicked off. But we also saw a few caddis flying around. And the blue wing olive hatch really started to generate. And I just threw on a caddis and they were moving 3 and 4 feet for the caddis as opposed to eating a natural blue wing.
So they like the bigger meal. So and that's your knowledge of the river system, the ecosystem. You know what's working, and therefore you're getting your clients into fish when others are not.
Well, that's what a guide's supposed to do,
Right,
right?
right, for sure. Darrel, I've seen some guides that,
Yeah,
right.
I understand.
Yeah. Part of it is knowing. So,
Well,
okay.
and part of it, Matt, too, just comes from experience.
Yeah.
This is my 11th season, so I've been through good times and tougher times, and you kind of pick up stuff along the way, and then this being my river, I understand how this river works a lot more than some of the others. So
And that makes a big difference because as we say, the proverbial, you know it like the back of your hand.
right.
Right. Which does. So tell us a little bit about a client, starting the process to book with you, Montana Trout Hunters, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 6 hour, 8 hour? What are we looking? What's the, I send an email to you. Hey, I'm interested in coming out. How does the process go from there?
Especially if you're traveling and if you're coming to Montana to fish,
Mm-hmm.
let's fish for 3 days.
Right.
That's the absolute best deal, and that is our most popular, right there in the middle. 3 days is nice. You come out, you knock some rust off. I get to know you, you get to know me. We get our language dialed in. We work on a few things, and you start to understand the fishery or fishing from a drift boat. And everybody's language and communication is just a little bit different. And
Right.
that first day is really good. That first day is also really good for someone who's never fly fished before, or they're very inexperienced. That 3 days is also super beneficial because you really just start to build on yourself. If you're coming to Montana for some other reason and you want to slip in a day of fishing, you're coming out for a family reunion or
Mm-hmm.
your daughter's wedding or whatever the case may be, and you want to slip in a day of fishing, we can accommodate that too.
Right. But you like someone really coming out there, that 3 day experience, because especially like you said, that first day, even for someone who's, I'll call myself an intermediate fly angler, you get to then work with me a little bit. Hey, Matt, do this. And there's that conversation on the water in the boat about hitting my spots, making sure I'm in the game correctly, which might be a couple of hours, let's say, out of the morning to really get dialed in. And so now we've just kind of moved through the first couple of hours, and now we're starting to really get into fish.
Exactly. And that first day you build, the second day, you refine a little bit better. You have more expectations of what to expect. I know more of what that client's capabilities are. And then the third day, we're crushing it.
And the third day is what makes me say, Darrell, when are we doing this again?
You always want to end on a high note,
Oh,
Matt.
for sure, all the time. So so now I've booked my trip with you. What am I bringing? What do I need to have before I step on your boat?
A Montana fishing license is a good place to start.
Okay.
And beyond that, really, Matt, all you really need is your clothes.
Okay.
We have all the gear, we provide everything. We have high-end fly rods, good fly lines. We choose all the flies. Your lunch is provided. I mean, if you have some snacks that you like to bring, bring a raincoat because it's Montana
Mm-hmm.
and he's a little bipolar sometimes. But if you have your own gear and you want to travel with that as well, bring that as well. I never discourage people from using their own gear.
And so if I am an angler that wants to bring my own gear, what weight rods are you using to go after these beautiful browns and these gorgeous rainbows? Are we doing 6 weight, 7 weight, 5 weight?
So I like a 5 weight for dry fly fishing
Okay.
because a lot of times we're having small dry flies.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I like 6 weights for nymphing. We can we can bump up to a 6 weight if we're throwing hoppers or there's a little bit of wind and you need a little bit more punch. And then for streamer fishing, a 7 weight is perfect.
Gotcha. So you want to have a variety and is it all, um, so obviously the 5, if we're throwing, insects, we're going dries, we're going floating line. If we're nymphing, are we using an intermediate or are we still going floating line and we're putting a tip to bring it down a little bit?
Nope, floating line.
Floating line.
Floating line. It's all about the drift.
Gotcha.
And the floating, when your line starts to sink, and some people come with sinking lines that are supposed to be floating lines, um, and it really affects their drift. And I have guys that bring their own gear, and their fly lines are sinking like a rock, and I'm like, hey, we gotta put your rod away, man, because your
You,
fly
you're just
lines
you're just
and
killing your percentages.
Matt, fish eat three things: presentation, presentation, presentation. That's it. They're opportunistic. They'll eat. but it's gotta appear natural in the water. And when your fly line's being drugged through the water, the flies are not being presented naturally.
Yeah. How long in advance should someone contact you to book a trip? Is it 3 months, 6 months, a year out? I'm sure there are some, like a July 4th weekend, a Memorial Day weekend. Those are probably high covered dates. But if I want something mid-August, what should I be looking at?
Well, I always say for the best dates, call as early as possible,
Mhm.
especially if you're bringing multiple boats. Um, all the best guides book early. We have our super busy times,
Right.
but we can generally find people. We can generally find good guides to get you down the river. But it's just early is always better. Um, but August is a great time. I love August for good anglers. It gets a little weedy, but the dry fly fishing can just be unbelievable. So someone who is experienced angler and they know how to rip the weeds off their line, or they can get through that without getting exasperated. It's a really special time to come out.
And when
But if
does,
you want to come in June or July, you should probably call me
like
a month.
yesterday, immediately?
Yeah. Well, we're booking June and July for next year.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Right. Yeah. And when do you kind of I know you said you actually have done some winter trips, but for the average season, are you kind of winding it down in mid to late September because the weather's changing, the water's getting colder, the fish become less active? Is there a spawn time where you want to leave the fish alone, let them be on their reds?
So, two things on that. So, one, since we're talking about the spawn, our rainbows spawn in the spring
Okay.
here. So, mid-April to mid-May is kind of the big part of the spawn, and a lot of those will run up some of the tributaries, but there's a lot of main river spawners. So, I leave that first 8 miles alone. I
Nice.
don't I don't go upriver, even though people do. I just personally elect not to.
Mhm.
I I don't go what I say is above Craig, Montana to the dam. So if dam to Craig is 8 miles, I don't go up there. The the browns spawn in September,
Okay.
in October, and most of those they go up a tributary called the Little Prickly Pear, and that tributary is closed for to protect the spawn.
Okay.
Um, as far as when I end, I typically end late October. Kind of depends on the weather, but
Mm.
late October seems to be about when we kind of wrap things up for the season. And people are, people do hunting as well, and that's a big thing out here, and I hunt as well. So
Right.
things definitely slow down, but September's very busy. It's just kids are back to school, and it's one last hurrah before the summer ends. It's just stunningly gorgeous out here. It's a really nice time for outdoorsmen.
And I mean, yeah, I think that's also it too. I mean, stunningly, you have an earlier leave change, so the colors are popping. You have the mountains. You're in this gorgeous. When I was looking at some of the pictures that we had up there a couple of minutes, that water. I mean, it's crystal clear. I mean, it's got this iridescent blue look to it. You could see the rocks in the water there behind you. I mean, this is it's picturesque. Everything about this.
Matt, I keep telling you, you got to come.
I know. I know.
Our next podcast needs to be on the boat, Matt.
Oh my God, 100%. It's I've done two like that, and I love everything about it, except it really takes me and you out of fishing for like a couple of hours because
Sure.
we're setting up cameras all over the place, and then we're getting mics on you and mics on me, and we're instruction and we're casting, and it really sells everything about the fly fishing in that location, and for your case, Montana. So 100%, we're doing it, and we will set it up. And the great thing is, I mean, I bring it back here, and I have an editor who's just awesome. He puts the whole thing together. So it really is pretty amazing.
I might need his number.
I'll give it to you off the air. I don't want him getting a ton of phone calls. I'd rather you get the phone calls, by the way. So that's more important.
Thank you.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about something else that's happening. I'm going to bring up a piece of video here to kind of intro this. This you sent me. You were in Puerto Rico recently, and this is, I mean, it's Tarpon City. This is incredible. I love it.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible. The fishery down there is unbelievable. We had so much fun. So there's a lodge down there called No Name Lodge in a city called Boca Raton. And I was talking with one of the owners last year, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to try to set up a new location." And so my best friend and I, we went down there and did an exploratory trip with one of the owners. And it was true exploratory. I mean, he knew a few spots, but a lot of our day was spent, poking around, checking different stuff. And then when I talked to him later in the year, they were like, "Man, we got it figured out quite a bit better. We found a bunch more spots." And so I grabbed 6 guys and we went down on a hosted trip. 3 of the guys came down, had never caught a tarpon before. Everybody got multiple tarpon to hand. And I don't even want to say this out loud, but I mean, we jumped like 200 tarpon in the week.
There is a picture that you sent me. I'm going to see if I can bring it up here, because when you sent it to me, I was like, Darrell, are you kidding? Because right there. I mean, these tarpon are just jumping out of the water, going for bait. And I mean, that's insane to me. When you see something like this, what are you thinking? Because you have fished many different places. This isn't like your first rodeo. Even this has got to put you in awe.
I said, "You got to let me out of the boat." I'm like, "I don't care about catching a fish right now. You got to let me out of the boat." And there was a little beach there, and the guide pulled me over, and I jumped in the water, and I sat down on this beach, and he went around the island. There was a cut through the middle of the island, and you can see the skiff up there in the top left corner. And yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, we watched this go off like this for over an hour.
Stop. An hour?
Over an hour, Matt. I kid you not. It was, and the pictures don't even do it justice. What I learned as a professional photographer is a tarpon is really, really hard to capture in the air, because when they come out, they send so much water everywhere. The camera doesn't know where to focus.
Right.
And even though I had my shutter speed set at 4,000, yes, I was stopping the action, but I was not getting tack sharp, pictures of eyeballs on tarpon.
And you're not, nobody's quick enough to adjust the focus. And I mean, you're up to the, you're up to the gods at that point.
This picture right here, that happened 10 feet in front of me. The bait fish that you see exploding, some were landing on the beach that I was standing at with heads, all around me, where they come up and just sliced them in half. And these groups of tarpon, there was like 3 different groups of tarpon, and from about 40 to 60 tarpon in each group.
Wow.
It was incredible. And we have some other video, and my buddy was on the boat, and they blew up 3 times within 30 feet of the boat, and he would cast and they'd blow up. He'd pick up, cast, they'd blow up. It was, I mean, the guide was like, "I've never seen anything like this." He was like, and yeah, I was like, "I don't care about catching a fish. I want to get out and just be in the moment."
Yeah, no. And I think it is a moment, because you might never see this again. I mean, this is incredible. Yeah. No matter how many times you go back and fish the same area.
It's
right. Always.
And I'm, just because they did it the day that I was there doesn't mean that they don't do it. But it was incredible. It was really cool. But the one thing that really this was my second tarpon trip, and the nice thing about the trip was the water was clear in a lot of the spots,
Mhm.
and so I was actually able to understand what the guys were saying about where to cast and where to put your fly and how to not, you know, how to cross the fish's face, how not to pull a fly towards a fish. Um, so for me, this really, really clicked. And sometimes it was just insane. And I made a cast on three tarpon that were coming at us, and I put it about 10 feet in front of them.
Right.
And the guide was like, no, do it again. And I picked up and I dropped it right on their heads, and I pulled it right over the top of their heads, which is a complete no no. And one came up and just smoked it. It was just, they're fun. And there's not a lot of pressure down there.
Mhm.
So a lot of these fish have never seen a fly, and nor do they care. They're there just to hammer it.
Is your fly pretty much imitation of what that bait fish was that you were seeing getting eaten up, or is it just some white ugly bait fish and that's it?
They didn't care. I
They,
mean,
oh,
we there was a fly called the French fry, and it looked like literally a yellow French fry with a little bit of ketchup on the end of it. And it's a worm. They ate that. They ate a pink one. They ate a chartreuse one. They they didn't care.
so
They saw it and they charged it. I mean, you would cast it some of these tarpon, and you'd have three tarpon
chasing.
fighting for fighting for the fly to see who got there first.
Wow.
It was, and it's fun. I mean, it's fun. I mean, you jump a lot, but if you've been tarpon fishing, you understand
What? Yeah.
it's yeah, they're hard to keep buttoned up
Yep.
because they're so good at it. But I finally, on the last day there, I finally got my bowing down without being yelled at.
Because do you? I'm going to use the. Did you trout set or did you notice strip? And then
My
did you keep?
very first one,
Uh huh.
my very first one of the trip, I did trout set,
Yep.
and the guide got mad, and I said, "Look, I get one. I get
Right. It,
one."
it's what you do your entire like 10 months out of the year.
Right. You know, I did. But it just like coming to fish with me for 3 days. We went down there and fished for 5 days. So every day you're just getting better and better and better.
Right. And,
So you're just building, and that's why I go on these trips. That's why I go to the Seychelles or Christmas Island or to here or wherever. I go to learn
mhm.
because I get to take all that work, all those lessons, all that knowledge. I get to bring it back to my fishery, and it just gives me different perspectives. I get to understand what it feels like to be a client, and it really helps me be a better guide.
I was going to say that because if you hire a guide and you don't like, let's say, the way that he's talking to you, handling you, he doesn't have that rapport, that probably sticks in the back of your mind saying, I never want to be that guide. I always want to be the one who's respectful, that teaches, that is compassionate and makes it a better experience. Because at the end of the day, for someone like me who might come to Montana, let's say once, and of course you're going to say once you're there every year, which I know probably is true. I want it to be a great experience every time.
Sure, and that's the hardest thing is I don't connect with everybody. You don't connect with everybody, and that's just human nature.
Mhm.
We don't always love every person that we're around, and you know, I do get along with most people, but there's always somebody you don't get along with, or they're having a bad day, you're having a bad day, you rub each other a little wrong. I mean, that happens, but yeah, it's I evaluate things, and sure, I've made people mad, just like guides have made me mad.
Right.
I mean, it's just part of life.
It,
But um but one of the toughest guides I ever had was in the Seychelles. And I mean, the dude was unbelievable angler, unbelievable teacher.
mhm,
Personality wise, we didn't click very well,
right.
but I still use stuff to this day, almost 10 years later, that I learned from that guy because he was exceptional. So regardless of the situation you find yourself, there's always a positive to pull out.
Gotcha. So when I was looking at your video, it made me think of something. When let's go back to Montana Trout Hunters and we're fishing the Missouri River. When I'm laying out line, how far do you, I don't want to use the word expect, but you hope that the client can cast a line 30 feet, 50 feet, 70 feet? I know conditions vary, but is there like an average or an expectation that you want the client to be able to reach so that he has a successful day?
If I have a client that can cast pretty accurate to 30 feet, we're in
Oh,
good shape.
gotcha.
They don't have to cast far.
Okay.
And some guys like to cast far, and the problem is when you cast too far, then you have trouble hook setting. So these fish get a bunch of boats a day over the top of them.
Right.
They're not scattering like they're scared rabbits.
Gotcha.
They'll scoot over as soon as you're past, they'll scoot right back to where they were.
Yeah.
So they don't get too bothered by it. So we can catch fish pretty close to the boat.
Okay. And then when you were catching the tarpon, what was your distance there? A little bit further, obviously. Mhm.
Well, if you turn on the audio, one of those videos, the guide's like, that fish ate 4 feet from the bow. And we had a lot of fish that did that. They ate really, really close. And some of them were, but I mean, we had a lot of fish that just ate at 20 feet. Dustin, the guy that was just in that last video there, that was his first salt trip ever.
Right.
That's me on the bow there. So, I mean, that was a 30-foot cast. That wasn't, 4 strips in and, you know, no big deal there.
This
But
is
right
Dustin.
there, Dustin, I mean, that's Dustin's first salt trip ever. And he put 4 tarpon to hand that day.
That's an incredible day. Look, so
And he caught a beautiful jack.
uh,
And um
wait, back up here. Hold on. I think I did it.
right there.
Yeah.
He caught that. I was so jealous, Matt. I was so jealous. I didn't even want to catch tarpon after he caught that because I've been chasing jacks and I've caught a couple like little teeny tiny like 1 or 2 pounder kind of things. But there were some big jacks in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And he caught that, and I mean, just the fight that thing gave him, holy smokes. And then I later in the day, my guide saw a permit, and I saw it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Grab your rod." I jumped up and I grabbed my rod, and I said, "Where'd he go?" And he goes, "He's gone." He goes, "There's 2 more right there." And I flipped it, and he goes, "Oh no, they're jacks. Strip hard." And I stripped super hard, and this jack crushed it. And he took off, and in seconds I was halfway through my backing.
Wow.
And it was super windy, and he goes, "How big a leader do you have?" And I said, 20 pound. He goes, "Man, we're gonna need a miracle." And I was like, "Thanks, man." And so we had to chase it down, and he wrapped himself around a coral head, and we got to him. Guide unwrapped him around the coral head. He took off, and we got him in the boat. It was, and as soon as we got him in the boat, the fly fell out of his mouth. He had straightened the hook out. It was unbelievable. We're taking waves over the bow of the boat. The boat's filling up with water. The bilge pumps going nuts. It was it was
It's a
it was
dream.
awesome.
It really is. I
Oh,
mean,
it was so fun. It
that
was so fun.
that
And then I caught this jack a little while later.
mhm.
This one's a fair bit smaller than the bigger one that I caught. I thought I sent you that picture, but I may not have.
No, but that's an incredible jack. They're both gorgeous. The one your friend got and that one, they're incredible. So did you ever get a shot at a permit, or was that just the one time you saw it and it took off?
Uh, that was the one that I saw, and I never got another shot at
Yeah.
it. And I was, these guys are my friends, they're my clients, and I was there for them. So
Right.
I wasn't really focused on myself. That last day I was gonna just tell the guide, hey, just drop me off and I'm gonna go walk the flat and look for permit. But the weather was pretty gnarly on that last day, so we
Gotcha.
just stayed in the boat. But had an epic day with just a great friend of mine, Dustin, and we had a blast. And it was pretty epic.
So let's talk a little bit about this. You're now offering hosted trips. It's on your website. I'm going to bring that up here. It's right here under hosted trips, and you go into
There's my
what
jack right there.
right there.
That's
That
the big one.
see, we still had the picture. There you go.
There we go.
um, so how long have you been doing hosted trips? I know you said last year was exploratory to Puerto Rico, and you went back this year. Is this kind of a newer venture that you're getting into? You're an experienced guide. You teach casting. How long have you been doing hosted trips, and where are we looking at? I have the list up here as well.
So I've also hosted trips to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
We went down to X Flats Lodge in Mexico. I hosted a trip down there. Was exceptional. Took some guys. That picture there, the guy casting, that's in Mexico.
Okay.
Uh, Went down there permit fishing. Had a great time down there. And but Matt, I have ADD, man, and I don't have insane resources.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I like to go explore other areas. And when I find a place that I was like, wow, this is really cool, and I think this would fit my clients, then I reach out about hosting. And one of the things for me, I'm not just trying to fill a slot to fill a hosted trip. I'm looking for the right group of guys.
Right.
And that's what several of these guys complimented me on. They're like, wow, you brought all these different guys together and everybody just had a great week together. Everybody really enjoyed each other's company. And to me, that's success.
Right, because you want them all to gel so that they all enjoy themselves as a group beside fishing.
Right. They're on vacation.
Yeah. So what goes into you deciding what destination you might be going to in a particular year, or are you doing maybe 2 hosted trips in a year, like I'll call it the off season, November to like March, let's say? Is that when you're typically looking at doing some of these trips to get out of the Montana cold?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wintertime deal for me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, for me, it's just it has to be really, really good. And I understand people's resources in fly fishing trips. You know this, especially destination trips, have gotten insanely expensive, and I'm very, very mindful of that. And I don't know, I'm a little gun shy on some of that stuff because it is so expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a big ask for some people. I just looked up the Farquhar Seychelles uh, in 2026. Base trip is $16,600
Oh my gosh.
per week.
Plus the flights to get there, plus. So at the end of the day, you're sitting at 2021 ish.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I went for like $6,500 in 2016, and I think at the end of the day, after airfare, gratuity, hotels,
Mm-hmm.
meals on the way, I think I was in that 11,000 range.
Right. So when you so you're very money conscious for the client, and as a client I appreciate that, right? I mean, because last I checked, even though my daughter thinks it happens, money doesn't grow on trees. She thinks that
Right.
there's the money tree somewhere in the backyard. I'm like, that doesn't happen like that, kid.
Well, just like with my business, Matt, yeah, it's expensive to go fishing, whether it's in Montana or Puerto Rico or the Seychelles or Mexico or whatever. None of it's cheap.
Right.
But I don't ever want people to come out and be like, "Wow, I didn't get my money's worth." And and the same thing with these destination trips. I don't want people to go, "Well, that was fun," but
Right.
I want people to go, "Wow, okay,
When are we
got
going again? Or where's
when are
our
we
next
going?"
trip?
Yeah. And everyone that went to Puerto Rico with us this year rebooked.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're already planning a 2026 Puerto Rico trip, or is it 27?
26.
Okay.
And I'm working with the lodge right now. I'm looking to add another week that is not full, so there is a little bit of availability for that.
Gotcha. So what does a rough Puerto Rico trip? How many days? First of all, how many days are we fishing on a Puerto Rico trip? You said, was it 5 days? Is that what you did?
5 days fishing, yes.
So it's a 6 day trip because there's day in, day out, or is it seven? What are you looking at there?
Yeah, it's a 6 day.
Okay.
We actually flew in. We had some airfare um, scheduling issues or whatever. So we actually flew in on Saturday. Four of us went on a Puerto Rican adventure trip that day. We hired a driver and he took us and we saw some local culture and we went to the Pork Highway and got to see where Puerto Ricans spend their weekends, and it was fantastic. Two of the guys actually added on an extra day of fishing,
Mm-hmm.
and then we started Monday through Friday. And the Puerto Ricans love to get out on the water and do their stuff and jet skis and all that stuff on the weekends. And so these guys down there, they try to keep it to Monday through Friday.
For fishing, right? To keep it a
Yep.
little bit, yeah.
And the cost there is $5,500. If you booked with me, I think the rates are going up a little bit
Sure.
for those guys for that year, but that's the rate that we negotiated with them.
And what's in? So obviously, the fishing, the guides are included. That gratuities probably not. Gratuities on the angler.
Correct.
That includes lodging and meals as well.
Lodging, breakfast, and lunch, and then for dinners we go out on the local economy and explore different restaurants throughout the town, and get to try some different cuisine. And so depending on your drinking habits or whatever,
Right.
but about $60 or so for dinner.
Sure.
Get you a few beers and a nice meal.
Right. I mean, and at the end of the day, I mean, you've been fishing all day in the blazing sun, so you're kind of tired. So one or two drinks, and you're like, yeah, I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Don't need to get too carried away
No,
with it.
for sure. Because what time are you starting your day fishing on these destination trips? You're getting up and you're having breakfast. So I'm assuming that's like a 7 to 8 o'clock. So are you on the water by 9?
Oh no,
Oh,
we're on the water by like 7.
oh, so your breakfast is like 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. No, it's early. Yeah,
Okay.
we got after it early, and then we were getting done about 3 or so in the afternoon, which was nice to come back, take a shower, relax a little bit before dinner, have some drinks, whatever. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. And then obviously the flight from wherever the home base is to Puerto Rico is on the client, but are you helping to facilitate that so everybody's landing at the same time and then you're all jumping in a bus or some sort of transport to the lodge that you're going to?
correct. Yeah. So that was, one of my jobs as the host was to put all that together. And I had people fly from 5 destinations
Mhm.
and I got everybody to land within 90 minutes of each other.
That's really, First of all, that's incredible because we all know how airfare and how air travel can be. One thunderstorm that I might produce destroys the whole system. Everybody's delayed.
Well, my flight was delayed, and I had 10 minutes to make 90 gates.
Was that through Chicago or Dallas or Denver?
That was in Denver. But yeah, we were delayed 50 minutes. We were delayed 50 minutes going out of Helena, and I only had a 50-minute layover.
Oh, man.
So I was running.
I'm sure you were. Yeah. Hey, so I'm assuming you bring your own gear, but are clients bringing their own gear for these destination trips, or does the lodge and the guides have gear? Because like, if you're going for, we were just talking before, 50, 60 pound tarpon, I don't have a 12 weight fly rod in my arsenal. I stop at 9.
Well, so all the tarpon down there, we caught with a 9 or with a 10 weight.
Okay.
With a 10 weight. I had a permit rod set up for a 9 weight set up for permit and jacks. And then I had a 10 weight set up for the tarpon. Some guys had their own gear, like Dustin. That was his first salt trip, and the lodge offers that. So I told Dustin, I said, save the money, use the lodge's rods, and I mean, if you break it, there's a fee to fix it or whatever. But
right.
I mean, that's a lot better than shelling out
$700, $800,
$2,000 for a salt rod and a salt reel and lines, and then you need 2 of them, and yeah.
Slap the spool on, slap the spool off. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, right. So, all right. So Puerto Rico's coming up. Are you looking at some other destination? Or I'm sure you're always looking, but have you decided on other destinations at this point yet, or not yet?
I haven't decided on anything. I'm always looking.
Yeah.
And that's the nice thing, being in the center seat of that boat. A lot of guys have been to a lot of places, whether it's, Alaska or Canada or Argentina or Chile or wherever. A lot of guys have been to a lot of places. So I really keep my ears open, and when I hear something, I'm like, let's talk.
Right.
So again, if I'm going to ask somebody to go with me, one, I want my expectations are high. My expectations on myself are unbelievably high.
Sure.
And I want people to go out and be like, wow, that was a little bit of a stretch financially, but I'm coming back.
Yeah.
Because it was just that good. And that's how Puerto Rico was. It was just that good.
Yeah. And I think that's the best compliment for a client and a friend, really, because like you said, you have a friendship that's coming into this, to come back to you and say, Darrel, this was awesome. Count me in on the next trip. That's what you want to hear.
And the thing too, Matt, one of the other reasons I go on these trips, and the reasons I ask clients to go on these trips, is to make them a better angler. I have this client, Gary, and I'm like, Gary, you need to go on this trip with me to Mexico. And he's like, I'm not that good. And I'm like, it'll force you to get better. Trust me. When you go pay $5,000 to go fishing and you can't cast past the end of your rod,
you're going to learn real fast.
You start to listen and learn really quickly.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be a long week. And like I said, 3 guys on this trip had never caught a tarpon. Dustin was on his first trip ever. And yeah, he stepped up and he learned, and we all get better. And it's just, you can cast a 5 or a 6 weight all you want. It is not going to replicate throwing a 3-inch bait fish with a 9 weight into the wind. Nothing can prepare you for that.
Yeah. That's the wind is the big thing. It really,
yeah.
And not that you don't have wind in Montana.
The one nice thing that I really liked about Puerto Rico was the guides are American. And so you could really, the communication is a lot better, instead of, you go to Mexico and stream. Okay. Is that a long strip, a short strip, a fast strip, a slow strip? Strip.
Give me a little more here, a little more, just a.
Yeah. But and so that was the nice thing about this was then I really got to learn. Hey, cast, you know, cast 3 feet in front of the fish, 1 foot past the fish, and pull it across his face, not
Right.
towards him. And then you're like, oh,
Make him
okay.
make the move. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, just but a bait fish doesn't swim towards a tarpon. A bait fish doesn't swim towards a predator.
Right.
So, and so when somebody finally explains that to you, and then you have clear water and you can understand that, then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
and that's what really made it this trip really special was there was a lot of sight fishing.
And that's one thing I was noticing in the videos. Let me bring that up there real quick one more time. You could see you're fishing a ledge there. Let me go back on that one. And there's the manatee. I keep hitting the manatee. I love the manatee. But you're fishing against the shore, so it's shallow in this area. So you're seeing these tarpon.
Right, and there was some sand. There was turtle grass, like the boat's over some turtle grass right there. But along that edge is a sandy bottom, so you could see him coming.
Right.
So that was really really nice to be able to see that, and then you're like, okay, now now I understand.
And so
And
when you see them coming, how weak do your knees get?
well, on this trip I did a little better because you just get better every time you go. But uh, yeah, when I first started out, I was very excitable, and I had a Seychelles guide named Peter King, and he was unbelievable. He's a legend, and he was like triggerfish, and I was just started casting frantically, and he's like, stop, stop, hold your fly, and I was like, and he's like, okay, we walk, and we walked up really slowly, and then he was like, okay, cast 1 foot to the left and 1 foot past him.
Got it.
And he just calmed me down. And I made a perfect cast. And I stripped and my fly got hooked on a piece of coral. But that right there, I was like, oh. So in my speech, when I'm guiding, my fast speech or accelerated speech, I get the clients hyped up. They're not as relaxed. They're not making a good cast. And so I tried to bring some of that home. I don't always get it right, but I try to like be calmer
Right.
On some of these tougher casts.
Yep.
And it helps.
Gotcha. I think that, yeah. So I did a tarpon trip in the Everglades back in March, and I landed a 24-incher. It was my first tarpon, and then I lost a 36-incher. And I mean, just he came up, he did the whole head shake, tail dance, and I sat there, and my guide goes, that was a mistake right there. I go, no, I know it was, because there goes the fly. Because I'm sitting there in amazement, right? Because, I'm like, this is oh yeah. You learn.
They're tough fish, man.
You learn.
That last day, we kind of were where all those fish were blowing up, and they were not doing the same thing that they were doing, but they were rolling.
Right.
And I went 0 for 8. I was just like, dang. I was like, but I just couldn't do it.
No,
Dustin got up, went 0 for 2, and then we went on to some other spots. And later in the day, I redeemed myself a bit, and I think I ended up landing 4 that day.
It's still an amazing fishery, amazing fish species to catch for sure. So,
there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
They're so fun. It's minus the power, but they remind me a lot of the rainbows on the Missouri. Right. Just big, explosive, high jumps, and it's a lot of fun. Now, granted, our trout aren't 30 pounds or whatever, but it's just,
I get.
it's kind of, it gets the blood pumping a little bit. It's pretty exciting.
Let's roll back to your main guide service, Montana Trout Hunters. You're located in Craig, Montana. Um, so I book with you. What is the easiest way to get to Craig, Montana? Is it to fly in and drive, or what's the best way? I'm sure there's multiple ways.
Sure. So I'll point out three ways. So you can fly into Bozeman, which is about an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hour drive.
Okay.
That's probably going to be your cheapest airfare. Southwest flies in there. You can fly into Helena or to Great Falls. Those are both pretty equidistant to Craig, about 45 miles for each one of those. Airfare is going to be a little more. Rental car is going to be a little less. Bozeman, airfare is going to be a little cheaper. Rental car is probably going to be a little more.
Okay.
So it just kind of depends on where you're coming from and what you want to do. But the nice thing is these close airports, Helena and Great Falls, easy to get to when you're done fishing. Get your early flight out to get back home.
And are you help the client that books with you in terms of at least understanding hotels in Craig, places to stay? Because I'm sure there's everything from Motel 6, Tom Baudette's going to leave the light on for you, to some upper echelon motel.
Sure, we have some lodges that we work with, full service, 100% all inclusive type lodges.
Okay.
That we work with that are absolutely fantastic. We can do hotels near the river. There's a lot of VRBOs. There's hotels in Helena if you want to do that. So that's outside of the fishing. My number one question is, where do I stay? And
Right.
so that's where a nice phone call really helps. I can understand their desire, their budget, who's coming with them. Do they want to be on the river? Whatever. So I really help people through it. I run a full service operation, and obviously, me, I'm not gonna put anybody anywhere that I haven't personally vetted.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because again, this whole trip is, when I book with you, it's your reputation. You're giving me all the guidance from flying in, how to get there, to hotels or lodge or VRBO. I mean, you're giving me, recommendations that, like you said, you have vetted, and that's what's important, because it's all about the experience.
Well, door to door, 100%,
Right.
100%. And I'm full service, and yeah, I want you to have a great time. I want to make it super easy for people. I mean, that's why you don't have to bring anything with you. You don't have to bring waiters we can rent waiters if you need to. So it's inexpensive to do that. All of our guides, they have great gear.
Right.
Everybody in this profession out here takes great pride in what they do. So
Sure. Sure. How many, last question I'm going to ask you, because I'll wrap this up because you've been generous with your time. How many clients, when we looked at the booking a trip, there's like one or two anglers, but if I have a group of 4 or 6 guys, it sounds like you also have a network that can kind of help us out, so we're all kind of fishing the same, I don't want to say the same stretch, but I guess the same days and the same times, kind of roughly together.
yeah, absolutely. So there's a ton of guides out here. Obviously, I have a roster, a baseball roster of who I like, who I think will do a great job, and I don't have to worry about it. And it and when you start adding people, that's when you really want to. You asked about calling times. That's if you're bringing the more people you're bringing, the earlier you want to call, because the better guides that I can get for you.
Right.
Um, and but that's easy business. We can get all that done for people. It's a piece of cake. So um obviously June's one of the toughest months to book for. So um but outside of June and July, it's guides are pretty easy to come by.
And on your boat, if I'm with you, it's one angler or two anglers with you.
Two anglers, one or two anglers, just depends on what you want. But in the drift boat, it's maximum of three persons, the rower and then a front seater and a back seater.
Gotcha. Very good. Darrel, I can't thank you enough for your time today. I'm going to bring up your website one more time. Again, it's Montana Trout Hunters. Darrel DeLeon is the founder and head guide, and you can get more information by going to his website. There's a contact us right on the top left corner. You can see the gallery of fishes, the different trip packages that are available, so you can see what you might want to look at. As Darrel said, a 3-day guide trip is the best. You get to learn about the river. He gets to learn about you, and you're accelerating your knowledge over those days. And your last day is really a killer day, I believe was the term that you said.
Yeah, as far as putting it all together, that's a great day. So yeah, I personally, I really like the 3-day deal. But everybody's different. Like I said, some people, they're coming out for other reasons, but they want to experience some Montana fly fishing, and it's a great place to do it. So
great. Darrel, thank you so much again for your time. I really appreciate it. And a great conversation. And I'm going to be jealous for a long time on the tarpon video and the tarpon stories for sure.
Well, Matt, I think I have a slot open to go back with me next year. So
it's 2026.
2026. We'll have to get you on there, man. But no, thank you so much for having me on again. I really appreciate it. And you are the king of podcasts, man. I think you'd give Joe Rogan a run for your money. You're just so,
that's a very nice compliment. Thank you.
You are so smooth at what you do, man. last time we did it and we got off camera, I was like, man, you killed it. Like,
thank you.
You are a natural doing this, and congratulations on the promotion, by the way.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's very nice. You sent me a message. You say, "Hey Matt, I had you had a couple days open, and I think it was in August or something this year. You're like, I'd like to offer it to you," and I said, "I would love to, but secretly hasn't been announced yet. I'm moving my position, and so we're going to be down a person into summer, and I had to decline. But this is a trip I want to do. I told you that when you were here last year. It is going to happen. I will probably do in a late August or early September. I think that's what I'd be looking at, because I want to catch some of that color changing and really experience, and I'm the guy who will do the 3-day trip with you, because I want to learn everything. Like I love when I get an education about what I'm doing, not just fishing, but where I am too.
Yeah, absolutely. And Montana's got such great history, and it's just a stunning, beautiful state. Now, I will tell you, being from where you're at in the world, we do not get the colors like y'all do.
Okay.
We don't have all those great hardwoods, and so we get some yellow leaves and stuff, but we don't get all the beautiful reds and all the stuff like that. So but it's still gorgeous, beautiful. And it's a great time to be here. Everything's starting to cool down a little bit, and it's spectacular. So I can't wait to get you out, Matt.
I appreciate that. Darrel, thank you once again. Let me just bring up your website one more time. Again, it's Montana Trout Hunters. Darrel DeLeon has been my guest, and again, he's the founder and head guide of Montana Trout Hunters. Second time being on. He's been spectacular as a guest on the show, and just really cares about the experience that the clients have. So give him a call today. Go to his website and book a trip. And for now, we will see you next time, another episode of Off the Hook with Matty D. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Off the Hook with Matty D.